And one thing is clear from the Afghan debacle: America's stock is tanking. Their military is not unbeatable and their partnership is not reliable. Joe Biden keeps saying the US is back, America is back, but the fact is that America has turned its back to allies, to democracy, to human rights. America was the so-called good cop of global politics. Now it's the lazy old watchman, negotiating with terrorists, fleeing in the middle of the night, walking away from long-term commitments. Partners are rightly worried, can this sloppy superpower take on China? To answer this question, the US has deployed Vice President Kamala Harris. She's touring Southeast Asia with stops in Singapore and Vietnam. Vice President Harris has one mission: to rally American partners against China, to convince them that Afghanistan was a one-off. In Singapore, she accused Beijing of intimidation and coercion in the South China Sea.
Our vision includes freedom of navigation, which is vital to us all. The livelihood of millions of people depend on the billions of dollars in trade that flow through these sea lanes each day. And yet, in the South China Sea, we know that Beijing continues to coerce, to intimidate, and to make claims to the vast majority of the South China Sea.
Strong words, but no one is listening. How can the US talk about free trade after handing 40 million Afghans to a medieval theocracy? Kamala Harris refused to talk about that. She said that there will be plenty of time to analyze those events. From Singapore, the vice president flew to Vietnam. It was a tricky journey. First, there was a security scare. Cases of the Havana syndrome were reported in Hanoi. It's a mysterious condition that targets American diplomats and officials. No one knows what causes it or how to treat it. But the victims talk about dizziness, nausea, and memory lapses. This is the Havana syndrome. As far as optics go, it was another blow. The vice president's flight was delayed by 3 hours. The only saving grace? She was flying to Hanoi and not to Ho Chi Minh City, or as the locals call it, Saigon. Vietnam was always going to be a tough stop. What's happening in Afghanistan is a rerun of America's defeat in Vietnam. The similarities are uncanny. Like these pictures, 2 US embassies and 2 helicopter evacuations, 46 years and 4,000 kilometers apart. How does that look? Kamala Harris met the top Vietnamese leadership. She promised more visits by American warships and offered 1 million doses of the Wuhan virus vaccine, but Vietnam is not convinced. Its prime minister has promised China that Vietnam will not enter an anti-China alliance. And we are talking about a vocal critic of Beijing here. Vietnam is. Even those countries are not joining America's bandwagon, and it's clear why. The United States is unreliable. They've seen what is happening in Afghanistan. What if the South China Sea is next? It's all Beijing can talk about. How America destabilized Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Listen to this.
美国迄今拒绝加入联合国海洋法公约。
The United States recklessly intervened in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, but claimed to be protecting the interests of small countries. If the United States says that it is to maintain its hegemony and its self-interest, I think his words are much more credible. China firmly opposes the deployment of maritime law enforcement forces by the United States in the South China Sea to intervene in regional affairs and disrupt regional peace and stability.
中方坚决反对美方在
A low amount of PR can make up for lost credibility. American allies blindly took orders from Washington. Look where that got them. Stuck inside Kabul airport, surrounded by the Taliban, their evacuation missions are hitting a dead end. While American spy chiefs are having tea with Taliban leaders. Who will take the US seriously after all of this? Clearly, their priorities are confusing and their commitment is fragile. America is not a bankable leader anymore. It's a high-risk investment. If things get murky, they will abandon you. That's what we saw in Afghanistan. An outreach by Kamala Harris cannot erase the pictures from Kabul. If the US wants to lead the free world, it must show appetite, because right now, Biden's America is back sounds a lot like America first. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.